Hey all, Michelle Raza here with Finding Yourself SATX Life Coaching, where since 2017 we've helped our clients achieve success by setting their personal vision statements, helping them to establish goals, and most importantly, holding them accountable in weekly coaching sessions. Visit my website. It's at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. Thank you. Also, if you like these videos and if they help you, please do like and subscribe. It really does help us little YouTubers and doesn't cost you a dime. I appreciate it. So this week's video, we're going to continue talking about Melody Beattie's Codependent No More. We're moving on to chapter, whoops, I lost my page. Chapter 9, which she titles UnDependence. Just in listening to the book, I think I told you guys, this is one of the books that I can listen to over and over again, like when I'm driving. That word just kind of irks me. I don't like it. You can call it independence, undependence, non-dependence. The point is not being dependent on somebody. So she starts with a quote. "What is it about me?" she asked. "Do I need a dead body lying in my bed in order to feel good about myself?" Alice B., a codependent who has been married to 2 alcoholics. "I'm real independent, as long as I'm in a relationship," announced a policewoman who has been involved with several emotionally troubled men. "My husband has been lying on the couch drunk and hasn't brought home a paycheck in 10 years, said another woman, the director of a large human services organization. "Who needs this?" she asked. "I must," she said, answering her own question. "But why? And for what?" A woman who had recently joined Al-Anon called me one afternoon. This married woman worked part-time as a registered nurse, had assumed all the responsibility for raising her 2 children, and did all the household chores, including repairs and finances. "I want to separate from my husband," she sobbed. "I can't stand him or his abuse any longer. But tell me, please tell me," she asked, "do you think I can take care of myself?" The words vary, but the thought is the same. I'm not happy living with this person, but I don't think I can live without him or her. I cannot, for some reason, find it within myself to face the aloneness that every human being must face or continue to run from. That of being ultimately and solely responsible for taking care of myself. I don't believe I can take care of myself. I'm not sure I want to. I need a person, any person, to buffer the shock of my solitary condition, no matter what the cost. Colette Dowling wrote about this thought pattern in The Cinderella Complex. Penelope Rushinoff discussed it in Why Do I Think I'm Nothing Without a Man? I've said it many times, I being Melody. Whether codependents appear fragile and helpless or sturdy and powerful, most of us are frightened, needy, vulnerable children who are aching and desperate to be loved and cared for. This child in us believes we are unlovable and will never find the comfort we are seeking. Sometimes this vulnerable child becomes too desperate. One second. People have abandoned us, emotionally and physically. People have rejected us. People have abused us, let us down. People have never been there for us. They have not seen, heard, or responded to our needs. We may come to believe that people will never be there for us. For many of us, even God seems to have gone away. We have been there for so many people. Most of us desperately want someone to finally be there for us. We need someone, anyone, to rescue us from the stark loneliness, alienation, and pain. We want some of the good stuff. And the good stuff is not in us. Pain is in us. We feel so helpless and uncertain. Others look so powerful and assured. we conclude the magic must be in them. So we become dependent on them. Needing people too much can cause problems. Other people become the key to our happiness. I believe much of the other-centeredness orbiting our lives around other people goes hand in hand with codependency and springs out of our emotional insecurity. I believe much of this incessant approval seeking we indulge in also comes from insecurity. The magic is in others, not us, we believe. The good feelings are in them, not us. The less good stuff we find in ourselves, the more we seek it in others. They have it all, we have nothing. Our existence is not important. We have been abandoned and neglected so often that we also abandon ourselves. Many of us expect and need other people so much that we settle for too little. We may become dependent on troubled people, alcoholics, and other people with problems. We can become dependent on people we don't particularly like or love. Sometimes we need people so badly we settle for nearly anyone. We may need people who don't meet our needs. Again, we may find ourselves in situations where we need someone to be there for us, but the person we have chosen cannot or will not do that. I'm not suggesting all our intimate relationships are based on insecurities and dependencies. Certainly, the power of love overrides common sense, and perhaps that is how it should be at times. By all means, if we love an alcoholic and want to stick with him or her, we should keep loving that person. But the driving force of emotional insecurity can also become far greater than the power of reason or love. Not being centered in ourselves and not feeling emotionally secure with ourselves may trap us. We may become afraid to terminate relationships that are dead and destructive. We may allow people to hurt us and abuse us, and that is never in our best interest. Ultimately, too much dependency on a person can kill love. Relationships based on emotional insecurity and need, rather than on love, can become self-destructive. They don't work. Too much need drives people away and smothers love. It scares people away. It attracts the wrong kind of people. And our real needs don't get met. Our real needs become greater, and so does our despair. We center our lives around this person, trying to protect our source of security and happiness. We forfeit our lives to do this. And we become angry at this person. We are being controlled by him or her. We are dependent on that person. We ultimately become angry and resentful at what we are dependent on and controlled by because we have given our personal power and rights to that person. Feeling desperate or dependent can expose us to other risks too. If we let the desperate part of us make our choices, we may unwittingly put ourselves in situations where we expose ourselves to sexually transmitted diseases such as herpes or AIDS. It's not safe to be that needy in intimate relationships. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we feel so uncertain and vulnerable that we can't go about the business of living our lives? Why, when we have proved we are so strong and capable by the sheer fact that many of us have endured and survived what we have, can't we believe in ourselves? Why, when we are experts at taking care of everybody around us, do we doubt our ability to take care of ourselves? What is it about us? Many of us learned these things because when we were children, someone very important to us was unable to give us the love, approval, and emotional security we needed. So we've gone about our lives the best way we could, still looking vaguely or desperately for something we never got. Some of us are still beating our heads against the cement, trying to get this love from people who, like mother or father, are unable to give what we need. This cycle repeats itself until it is interrupted and stopped. It's called unfinished business. Maybe we've been taught not to trust ourselves. This happens when we have a feeling and we're told it's wrong or inappropriate. Or when we confront a lie or an inconsistency and we're told we're crazy. This is called gaslighting. We lose faith in that deep, important part of ourselves that feels appropriate feelings, senses truth, and has confidence in its ability to handle life's situations. Pretty soon, we may believe what we are told about ourselves, that we're off, a tad crazy, not to be trusted. We look at the people around us, sometimes sick, troubled, out of control people, and we think, they're okay. They must be. They told me so, so it must be. There must be something fundamentally wrong with me. We abandon ourselves and lose faith in our ability to take care of ourselves. So she goes off and she has 5 different tips of what we can do in order to, it's 6 different tips. In order to strive for more independence, UnDependence, non-dependence. So what I will do is cover in the next video, start talking about these things. I do want to tie it in to what we've been talking about with Dr. Gibson. So I think a lot of these things are the same thing couched in different ways. So if you've been raised by EIPs, I think Gibson talks a little bit about how EIPs can sometimes be substance abusers. And another thing about the codependent frame of mind or the way you think, sometimes it's multi-generational. So you don't necessarily need to have a substance abuser in your life in order to be a codependent. It can just be a way of being that has been passed down. So somewhere along the line you had an EIP or a chemically dependent person, and then everyone kind of around them, like whenever you're walking on eggshells around someone or fawning, other people have written, I forgot his name, I think it's Pete Walker, but he wrote a book on complex PTSD that at some point I'd like to cover as well. The list is never ending, right, of books that I'd like to cover. But he talks about we've heard of the fight or flight response, which is quite common. You hear about that, right? You're in a dangerous situation and you have the fight or flight. But he has another one which is called fawning. Fight, flight, or fawning. And so the fawning response is very typical of the codependent. You become very subservient to the person. You compliment them. You're trying to, it's that walking on eggshells. You're trying to be very careful. You don't want them to explode either into a rage or go off on a bender. So you're trying to please them. So if we think about being raised by EIPs, or, Gibson says you often partner with an EIP until you know what you're dealing with. That's just kind of, it's what feels like home. It's natural for you. So these behaviors, it comes from, I think she said it, right? When we were little, hold on, I'm going to find the page. When we were children, someone very important to us was unable to give us the love, approval, and emotional security we needed. So basically, you're going to go looking for it elsewhere until you learn to find it within yourself. You don't need somebody else to give it to you, but this is much easier said than done. It's very easy to say, look in the mirror, love yourself, be your own best friend. No, in real life, it doesn't really happen that way. And ultimately, at least in my own experience, what I found that really helps is to establish a strong, chosen family, whether that be with a partner who's supportive, or a group of best friends who can act like brothers or sisters and help you navigate the waters that are life. I mean, all of us are going through it. Life is not easy. Adulting is not easy. And if you haven't been set up for success with parents that taught you, emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, who were themselves emotionally mature, if your own parents were suffering any type of dependency issue, chemical dependency, alcohol abuse, if they came from an alcoholic family, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where oftentimes you might not even really know what it is you're thinking. If somebody says, "How are you doing?" you might say, "Good, good, good, fine, fine, fine." But if you actually look into it, like, how are you really, you might not be able to label your feelings. I talked to a counselor once who was very good, and he would often tell me, if your feelings were a weather pattern today, what would they be like? And so that was kind of good, right? You can describe a weather pattern. If your feelings were a color, what would they be? What colors would they be? Color or colors? And then just Google the feelings wheel. Start putting, in your journal, start putting your feelings to words. Because it's not so easy, and if you've never done introspection, if you've never done counseling or therapy or never worked with a life coach, then sometimes you don't know how you feel. You know how other people feel, and that's one of the things that Melody Beattie talks about, right? I asked them about them, and they told me all about the other person. How are you doing? Well, my partner this, my partner that, they did this, they did that, they went on a bender, they've been drunk for 3 days, they're on the couch. But how are you doing? Right? Often we can't even answer that about ourselves because we're too busy living our lives mixed up with the dependent person in our lives. So we are codependent, and basically what that means is we've given up our own life for the sake of someone else, and we're trying to understand here why. Why does that happen? We were not given the love, approval, and emotional security that we needed. So we're going to clasp at anything and anyone to try and give us a piece of that. But they may not be the right person. They may not be giving you what it is that you need. And if you only have that one person who happens to be the chemical dependent in your life, it's probably not the best strategy. So you want to spread that out and have a support system of people who are also emotionally healthy, who are not addicted to substances, who are able to give you an objective perspective. If you can't build that within your community, and it's very hard, right? As an adult, how do you go off making friends? Look up a professional. A professional can help you do that as well. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Hard stuff. We will continue next time talking about, I'm not sure how long, how much I'll be able to go into every time. I also want to give you guys a little bit of chance to digest what we talk about. So we may spend some good time on this chapter. It is chapter 9 in the book. Hopefully you've picked up your own copy. Please do visit my website. It's at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. And please also like and subscribe. It really does help us little YouTubers. Thanks, y'all. Have a great week. Take care.